First of all, let me just give a disclaimer. We don't think you should be doing a whole lot over email, but we also realize that the next generation coming up, that's all they do is email and text and whatnot. They don't do voice to voice anymore. These can be very effective in electronic communication. When you send an email and you want to put a couple audits in there, you put one audit, hit return, double space. So that you, because the pause between is very important. You saw how I paused when I was telling you those, right? The pause between is extremely important because you're telling them negative things they're not expecting to hear and they're going, what is happening? So they need time to process. So when you put it in an email, hit return twice so you have a skip. You can even put a ... at the end. And the time it takes them to go from here down to where they're reading the next one, they've had a couple seconds to digest before they read the next one. Okay? So yes. Short answer to the question is yes, they will work in an email. But you got to give the proper space so you have the pause that you need. You can't just, go on and on. They will not work if you back-to-back them like this. You've got to pause, which is why we tried to tell you so much earlier about dynamic silence. Dynamic silence, it's important, it's important, it's important. It's extremely important with this audit because, especially after the first one, because when you say that first negative thing, they're going to be going, they're not going to believe you just said that. So they're going to need a few seconds to kind of like pick their chin up off the floor and get back in the groove before you hit them with another one. Okay.
I think Troy had some.
How many people have seen the movie 8 Mile? Great example of accusations audit.
It's a great example.
Everybody looked at this young white guy being a rapper, going to go up against these guys that were supposed to be the best. Eminem went out there, threw out everything that they were going to say about him before they could say it, and they had nothing to say. Prime example, I know y'all are sitting in the room saying, man, I couldn't do this. It's exactly what he did. And it was so successful that the competition didn't know what to say afterwards. They were like, wow. Think about that when you're doing this, because your first inclination is going to be, I can't say it, and if I do, I'm going to soften it. However, if we ask you to give the negative things that you're thinking about the other company, you're going to be raw. So you have to realize that you have to be raw when you say it, when you're thinking what you think they may be thinking about you. Because if we tell them, hey, tell us what you're thinking about your own company, they're not going to do it. So learn to think from their perspective. This is the way they're probably thinking about us. And when you put it out there, it has so much more impact that when they go, no, I wasn't thinking that, they can't go back and use it against you later.
Well, one of really 3 things is going to happen during the acquisitions audits. You're going to put them out there and they're going to stop you and say, no, we're not thinking that. Or they're going to stop you by saying, yeah, we get it, but let's move on. That's the more assertive way. Either one of those things, it's them pushing the conversation forward, which is psychologically, it means something for them to push the stuff forward, okay? For them to push everything that you're doing forward, it is psychologically, it means something to them, okay? When you get to that point, you're gonna go back to that most important #1 audit, and before you allow the conversation to go any further, you wanna make sure you get that one out. Now, why is that? What's the law of negotiation gravity that goes with that? Yes, the last impression is the lasting impression. So the #1 audit that you think is the most negative thing they think about you should be the last one that you get out there to make sure you mitigate it. So you get through as many as you can, and if you don't get through all of them, don't stress about it, but like she said, you do have to go back and do it. You want to end with that last one, that most important one, before you move forward. And then you're going to summarize. Somebody's going to summarize why you're there today. Okay, this is why the meeting's happening, this is what we're here to do, blah, 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 blah. And then it'll move on further past that.
When you break the bad news of, hey, this is not going to work for me, what do you think his response is going to be? This guy's so greedy. Every time I do this, he wants to tell me the price is higher. All of those things that are going on in their mind. Take the light and shine it on yourself and say, I'm going to sound like such a horrible person. And go far with it.
literally write that and then double
Yes.
it up.
You can
Yes.
say, we even say get graphic with it. Derek
yeah.
always says this thing, you're gonna wanna reach across the table and stab me in the eye with a pen. Like, you're
The
gonna
more
wanna reach
visceral
through
you
the
make it,
screen.
the more they feel it. Okay,
Yeah.
when you get like that, the accusation audit not only takes the negative out of their mind, but it puts them in the moment where they're like, oh, it's gonna make me so mad. Another thing the audit, I'll get you, I promise I won't forget. When you say stuff like that, you're gonna wanna jump across the table and stab me in the eye with a pencil. It makes them go to worst case scenario. So whatever you're gonna say next is gonna be like, oh my God. So we thought we were here to negotiate a $500,000 contract and they're about to tell me it's gone up to $1 million. Holy crap, this is crazy. So then when you tell them it really is a $500,000, they're gonna be so relieved. Even if that's $100,000 higher than they were gonna pay you, they're gonna go, whew, it's not $1 million, and they feel better. So you take them to worst case scenario. If you get really good with these, you send their mind up to, oh my God, this is horrible as, oh my God, what's gonna happen? You set that fear really high, and then when you give them what it really is, they will have a relief reaction, and then they'll be okay with what price you give them because it wasn't where their worst scenario went. Make sense?
But just don't include any of those words after you're out.
Yes, you don't explain. Remember, Ronald Reagan says, if you're explaining, you're losing. You shouldn't be explaining. Don't make it harder on yourself. Okay, work smarter, not harder. Every single skill we're telling you to use, stop putting so much thought behind it. Just use it. Just go into a conversation with a blank slate. Let them give you all the information that you need. Label what you're seeing, what you're feeling, what's coming about. Remember, intuition is important. That's what you're doing. When we talk about sequencing a little bit, at some point you're going to give your pitch or your ask. That's where you explain all the negative things you think they're thinking and how they're not really negative. When you get down later in the negotiation. When you're doing it with an email, and Brandon, I'm coming to you next. When you do it with an email, you are going to have to say, the price you put on here is lower than what we had initially agreed to. So, accusation audit, return, return, accusation audit, return, return, accusation audit, return, 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 return. The price on this thing, because you're going to have to get to it at some point about why you're saying all those things. Yeah, or I mean, do whatever you need to do. 2, 3, I mean, 1 could work. It just depends on your situation, how you feel about it. 1, 2, 3. I mean, we say go robust because what's going to happen is if you are going into a negotiation and you come up with 10 audits and you say, you know what, that just seems like a lot. I'm only going to go with 5. The one they're going to burn you with is the one you didn't use. That's the one negative thing. It's going to come back and bite you in the butt because you didn't mitigate it before you started. If you truncate that list, you do so at your own peril.